have conflict of interest laws all of a sudden disappeared in Canada? Because Mark Carney, who, $63 billion have left the country of Canada. Our GDP per capita has dropped 6 quarters in a row. GDP dropped 2 quarters in a row. Disaster since Carney was elected Prime Minister. Carney personally has profited wildly. Brookfield Asset Management is a standalone stock, is up 47% since Carney was elected. And Carney's portfolio of over 600 stocks, which you can find incredible tracking of online, are up an average of high 30 some odd percent. So while the Canadian economy has shed billions of dollars, $63 billion, Stellantis shutting down, Jack Daniels shutting down, losing more and more manufacturing jobs, 22% youth unemployment rate among young males, only 0.2% GDP per capita growth, which is considered the best measure of how your average citizen is doing. Over the past decade alone, in the US, has been an average of 2% a year. Canada is 0.2% over the entirety of that timeline. And Carney is just blatantly out at his pressers talking about GE Hitachi, a company that he is explicitly invested in. We know this for a fact. It states in the conflict of interest, the Canadian conflict of interest law, that a public official is explicitly not allowed to use their position to promote a company that they are directly have an interest in. It is widely known that Carney has a financial interest, a substantial financial interest in GE Hitachi, and he's just out here on the stump saying it. He's just standing there on the stump and saying it. And so do these laws just not exist? If you're the Prime Minister of Canada, you're allowed to blow our relationship with the US intentionally. Over 90% of Carney's investments are actually located in America. Shocking for the Prime Minister of Canada. The guy hasn't even lived his adult life in Canada. He has the man has 3 passports. 90% of his investments are in the US. He's intentionally sabotaged our relationship with the US. 45% tariffs for Canadians right now. And now he's going and trying to make a deal with China, which have massive relationships with Brookfield Asset Management, where Carney spent the past 15 years. And it's blatantly obvious that he is maneuvering Canada not in the best interest of the average citizen. We already know that 3% migration a year, which is what Canada is currently allowing, an unprecedented number, coupled with these so-called green initiatives, the green initiatives that profit Carney, though, not green initiatives like LNG and oil exports to Germany, to China, to Japan, where they're begging us for it, but we refuse to do it, even though if we actually wanted to make an impact on the environment, that's how we go about it. 50% cleaner than coal that they use in China, 50% cleaner than what they use in Germany. Olaf Scholz is here begging for it, but we refuse to send it over because it doesn't profit Carney. This man is just blatantly looting Canada to fill his own pocketbooks while the Canadian economy continues to struggle. This is no longer up for debate. 3% population growth a year combined with a focus on green initiatives on our economy is going to damage Canada's economy. Exactly what we've seen. We're in a recession. Meanwhile, Carney tells the Canadian people they're not allowed to invest in oil and LNG exports because it's too damaging to the environment, despite the fact that Canada only accounts for between 1.5% and 2% of all total global emissions. He, through Brookfield Asset Management, is heavily invested in oil. It's rules for thee, not for me, as it always is with liberals. And he's personally profiting like crazy. And now, you know what? He had at least kept enough distance that it was difficult to say whether what he was doing was illegal with an actual being able to say it definitively. But now that he's out in front of the microphone talking about companies that he explicitly has a financial interest in, and we know it, don't let them gaslight you and lie to you and say he has a blind trust. That's total BS. He does not. Mark Carney does not have a blind trust. Mark Carney is well aware of exactly what it is that he's invested in. And he's out here with the Canadian flag behind him talking about companies he's personally invested because he knows the RCMP it just goes to definitively show you he knows the RCMP won't go after him because the RCMP doesn't prosecute the Liberal Party. We saw the same thing with Trudeau. The idea that we're living in a democracy and a free society is such a joke. The laws apply to, it's totally political. Whether the law applies to or not is totally political, and this is what we always see in communist countries. It's not a question of what you did or what you did not do. It's a matter of what group you belong to. It's identity politics, and it gets very nasty. It's time for Canadians to stand up against this, and at least CARNEY's giving us a very wide target, because the fact that this man feels as though he can be so brazen as to go on a podium, explicitly talk about companies that he has a financial interest in, and not be more subtle about it. Most people would find subtle ways to inject companies that they had a financial interest in, but he knows that definitively, that he's not going to get in trouble. But that's when you get in trouble, when you think you're above the law, which CARNEY clearly does. CARNEY actually thinks it's below him to even deal with the media. You look at the way that he treats the Canadian media. You can just tell, it's so obvious, the utter disdain that he holds for them. He feels as though that he's doing them some major favor in a democracy to speak with the media so frequently condescending, while at the same time, the pathetic puppets at the CBC who receive $1.5 billion a year, not one question have I seen about CARNEY's conflicts of interest. They don't dig into anything that's anti-CARNEY. Just go to the top Liberal comms person, and you'll know exactly what information is you're going to be getting out of the CBC on a daily basis. But somebody needs to start calling us out, because now it's just so blatant. You can literally just play the footage of him talking about GE Hitachi. And not only is it illegal in Canada, does it break our conflict of interest laws, the SEC in the US should also be looking into it, because it's blatantly illegal by SEC regulation as well. So Canada, no doubt about, has a financial crook who's here to loot and pillage our country. And he could give two damns about how the economy is doing for the everyday Canadian. After the Freedom Convoy, he wrote that the people involved were seditionists. That's the type of guy this clown is. So let's keep pushing it, getting the good word out there, letting people know that Canada currently has a crook, an illegitimate crook for a prime minister who hates everyday Canadians, could give two damns about everyday Canadians, and he's robbing us. He's robbing us blind. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, donate, grab some gear. Appreciate the support.